continuing to read Ben Franklin's In My Bathroom by Candace Fleming. Starting in the middle of chapter 13 on page 196. Fear not, dear boy, Ben reassured me. I am highly experienced in the delivery of electrical kisses. I've often used a similar strategy to scatter the gawkers gathered in front of my house. He paused a moment before adding, I electrified my wrought iron fence. Bzzz! Shrieked Olive. She stiffened and shook as if a shock of electricity were running through her body. Hardly as severe as that, replied Ben, making some adjustments to the backpack. No, sweet Olive, my kisses are always harmless. People often squeal or jump, but they are never hurt. Never? Cried Olive. But I want to zap Tommy, zing him a good one, zonk him, and... She smacked her fist into her palm. Zowie! She paused to catch her breath. Let's shock him unconscious and grab the radio. I rolled my eyes. So much for sweet Olive. She stomped her foot. So why'd we build all this stuff if we're not going to sizzle the snoop? The element of surprise, replied Ben. I don't get it, said Olive. Ben explained. Master Tuttle will not be expecting a kiss. It will surprise him, startle him, and in that moment we shall gain the upper hand. And with our upper hands we will grab the radio, right? Added Olive. Correct, said Ben. Chapter 14. It was late afternoon by the time we pulled Olive's wagon down Laurel Street. In the back, the electrostatic machine bumped and rattled. Beside it, the backpack twinkled and flashed. Ignoring the stares from passerby, we turned onto Euclid Lane. Tommy's house sat on the corner. From our spot on the sidewalk, we could see into his backyard. So cute, squealed Olive, pointed to a little wooden playhouse. It had a shingled roof, shutter at each of its 4 miniature windows, and a little deck porch. A blue bicycle leaned against the railing. He's in there, I said. Olive karate chopped the air. Then let's get him. Hi-ya! I shook my head. You two stay here. It's my turn to do a little surveillance. Keeping low, I scurried across the yard to the playhouse and crouched beneath one of its little windows. Maybe I kept on breathing. I must have. But that's about all I dared to do at first. Then through the thin pane of glass, I heard someone humming. Slowly, carefully, I raised myself up and peeked over the sill. The inside of Tommy's playhouse looked like something out of a police show. There was a poster of the FBI's Most Wanted tacked to one wall, along with a framed picture of Sherlock Holmes. There was a microscope and a periscope and a pair of high-powered binoculars. There was a fingerprint kit, along with a roll of crime scene tape, plastic evidence bags, specimen swabs, and a shelf full of books with titles like DIY Private Eye and Spying for Dummies. Tommy stood in the middle of the room. He'd swapped out his camo jumpsuit for a lab coat. Obviously, he hadn't been able to get one in his size, that is, short and skinny. The coat hung down all the way to the floor. More than once he tripped over its hem as he moved around a low table, a magnifying glass pressed to his eye, to examine my crystal radio. Every few seconds he jotted a note in his crime-solving journal. Do you see anything? Startled, I dropped back beneath the window and whirled around. There was Olive. Behind her was Ben, pulling the wagon. Didn't I tell you to stay back? I hissed at her. But I was curious, she said. As was I, added Ben. I gestured for them to get down. Ben crouched, his knees creaking like an unoiled door. Shh, I whispered, before adding, the radio, it's in there. Did he make it work? Asked Olive. Is George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or someone like that in there with him? That Lincoln fellow, sniffed Ben. Zoons, but I'd like to have a few words with him. Tommy's alone, I said. Good lucky for Mr. Lincoln, grumbled Ben. Just in case, I crept to the corner of the playhouse and cautiously peered around. It's all clear, I whispered back to Olive and Ben. I'm going in. Me too, said Olive. And I, said Ben. Using the makeshift bamboo cane, he creakily stood. Let us retrieve the contraption immediately. Lost time is never found again, you know? My nerves felt like a Mexican jumping beans as I dragged the wagon onto the deck. Ben and Olive followed. Let's bash in the door, she said. She did a karate kick. Hi-ya! Instead, I grabbed the doorknob and gave it a turn. The door swung open. The three of us burst into the playhouse. Tommy whirled. His eyes widened for an instant, then turned squinty. "You," he exclaimed. "I thought you three would be in jail by now." Olive put her hands on her hips. "Well, nah, we're not, so there." "But you should be," I added. "You stole our radio." "Stole?" said Tommy. "I didn't steal anything. I collected evidence proving that he is the real Benjamin Franklin." "Give it back," demanded Olive. She karate chopped at him. "Give it back or else." Tommy snorted. "Or else what?" "I'll kiss you," she replied. "I'm so scared," drawled Tommy. "Young man," said Ben, "we are giving you the opportunity to right your wrong with no repercussions." "Get lost, Franklin," said Tommy. Ben shook his head sadly. "It appears you leave us no other course of action." He turned to my sister. "Olive, if you please." With a nod, Olive pulled the wagon through the doorway. Then she began cranking the handle of the electrostatic machine. It whirled and hummed. Pinpricks of electricity lit up the glass jars. Then a spark suddenly danced across Ben's cane. Its metal tip vibrated. "That will be sufficient, Olive," said Ben. She quit cranking, and Tommy chuckled. "What are you doing, making ice cream?" "No, dummy, I'm making you that kiss I promised," said Olive. I tried again. "Come on, Tommy, please, just hand over the radio." Tommy snorted. "No way, Stanberry. I'm keeping it. This thing is going to make me the most famous kid detective in the country. I'll get my own reality show. That is, just as soon as I figure out how it works." Ben sighed. "I had hoped you'd see reason, young man, but I can tell you mean to keep the contraction. So..." He set the Princess Aquamarina backpack on the floor. It shimmered and flashed as he pushed it forward with the tip of his cane. "What's that?" Tommy stared at the backpack suspiciously. I could almost see the gears in his head turning. "Another time travel machine?" "Don't touch it, Tommy," I said, putting myself between him and the backpack. "Believe me, it's, shocking." "Nolan, you're ruining everything," yelped Olive. Ben looked me in the eye. "Don't you want to right this wrong, my boy?" "Not this way," I said. "Sure, I know it's just a little kiss, but, well, two wrongs don't make a right." Olive looked at Ben. "Is that one of your sayings, too?" "No, dear Olive, but it should have been." He nodded slowly. "Yes, indeed, it most certainly should have been." He bent for the backpack. "Oh, no, you don't," cried Tommy. He pushed me aside, reached out, and zap! A blue spark of electricity burst from the backpack. Crackling, it lit up like the mermaid's tail. It lit up the mermaid's tail in a neon sign and filled the air with the bitter smell of melting plastic before leaping to touch Tommy's outstretched fingers. "Yow!" Geez, was he ever surprised. As he jumped back, Tommy's feet tangled in his too long lab coat. He stumbled, flailed, grabbed at the air, and he landed with a crashing thud on the playhouse floor. Books, specimen swabs, rubber gloves, fingerprint brushes, and evidence bags rained down around him. The most wanted poster fluttered down and landed on his chest. A roll of crime scene tape bonked him on the head. "Upper hand," cheered Olive. Grabbing the tape, she raced around and around the still surprised Tommy. In seconds, his arms were pinned to his sides with the yellow plastic. "I told you not to touch it," I said. Tommy squirmed and struggled. "Let me loose," he demanded. "Not until we've got what you stole from us," I said. Moving to the table, I picked up the radio, carried it out to the wagon, and set it beside the electrostatic machine. Then I came back inside and bent over him. I nudged him with the toe of my sneaker. "Are you okay?" Tommy didn't say a word. He just growled at me through clenched teeth. "Yep, he's okay," piped up Olive. By now, Tommy's face was so red he looked like a chili pepper. For a second, I thought he might explode. You shocked me," he bellowed. "What the teensy-weensy spark," said Olive. "That was just a little kiss. Show him how you did it, Ben." Ben nodded and pointed toward the backpack. It no longer flashed and glittered. Now a thin trail of black smoke rose from Princess Aquamarina's once shimmering tail. "There is a knitting needle hidden in that satchel," which young Olive charged by cranking the electrostatic machine. "The wire you see runs down my stick. It delivered the spark from that machine to the satchel. Your desperation for fame and recognition did the rest." Olive stepped over Tommy and picked up her ruined backpack. No more shimmer and shine, she said, but it was worth it. I'll get you for this, hollered Tommy. He twisted and wiggled some more, and suddenly his left index finger poked through the tape. Time to go, I said, herding both Ben and Olive toward the door. I knew it would only be a matter of minutes before Tommy worked himself free, and I wanted to be that far away when he did. This isn't over, Stanbury, Tommy shouted after me. I had a feeling he was right. The next time we read, we will finish Ben Franklin's In My Bathroom by Candace Fleming.